Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the VMI Army ROTC virtual commissioning ceremony. Please rise at your respective locations for the playing of the national anthem and invocation.
Good morning. I invite you to join me for the invocation. Lord, as we gather today, we recognize that we are living in a unique, uncertain, and volatile time. And as our nation seeks answers, searches for hope, and looks to the future, we hear a constant and unceasing cry for trustworthy leaders. Lord, we need men and women of character and integrity to step up and to selflessly assume the mantle of courageous leadership. God, today my heart is filled with hope and with joy because I believe that some of those leaders are standing with us today. I give you thanks for these 117 young men and women who have finished their academic coursework and their military training requirements amidst these tenuous and confusing days. As they take their oath of office today, God, I pray your blessings upon them. Raise them up, equip them to be leaders of consequence and visionaries who influence people, organizations, and our nation. May they always demonstrate an unwavering devotion to duty. May they be servant leaders who place the needs of their subordinates above their own. May they be the first to volunteer for tough, dirty, and unceremonious jobs. When they face uncertainty, fear, adversity, may they do so with confidence, tenacity, grit, and a steadfast faith in you. Lord, I thank you for these young men and women and for the good that you will bring about through them. And I pray this all in your holy name. Amen.
Please be seated. Distinguished guests, family members, faculty and cadre, and most importantly, cadets of VMI Army ROTC, soon to be commissioned. Thanks for connecting and attending, and welcome to this year's commissioning ceremony. Today is a momentous event for our commissionees that will mark the start of their Army journeys. Although we are executing this virtually in an unprecedented time, this ceremony still carries the same importance and will recognize the achievement of these cadets in getting to this point and their acceptance of tremendous responsibility as they become officers in our Army. Today we'll commission 110 second lieutenants from Virginia Military Institute and 7 from Mary Baldwin University, Virginia Women's Institute of Leadership, which makes this the largest Army ROTC commissioning ceremony in the nation this spring. As we commission these officers into our Army, they will be joining a tremendous team and the finest Army in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary of the Army, Honorable Ryan D. McCarthy, VMI Class of 1996, prepared the following message for cadets in the Army in Army ROTC across the nation, who are commissioning in these challenging times, most in ceremonies much like this. He has been where you are and now leads our Army. These comments from Secretary McCarthy up front set the context for what we are about to do.
Congratulations on your upcoming graduation and commissioning. This is a huge milestone in your lives and also the beginning of you joining our ranks. Welcome. We need each of you ready to lead the world's finest and most lethal force. I regret that I'm not able to give you this message in person and that this year commencement and commissioning will be different. But celebrating your achievement differently shouldn't diminish what you have accomplished here, nor tarnish the pride you should feel. What I would offer to you is a single touch point you can always return to, no matter where you may find yourself in life. Tough times don't last. Tough people do. With that said, the circumstances that you find yourself in now won't last forever. To build this resilience, train. Train hard and train often. Train your body to operate under duress, your mind to remain calm in chaos, and your heart to endure hardship. In a short time, you will have the privilege of leading our nation's men and women, and they will look to you as a steady hand at the helm. Serve them well. I am incredibly proud of you. Congratulations on graduation and commissioning, and I will see you out in the field.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker for today's commissioning ceremony is Lieutenant General Charles Flynn. As you know, this ceremony was scheduled to be conducted in Cameron Hall, with Lieutenant General Flynn serving as the Army commissioning officer, along with 3 other general officers from the other services. While our respective plans for the event were impacted by COVID-19, Lieutenant General Flynn is still playing an important role in this event by providing a recorded address to the future officers at VMI Army ROTC, their guests now at over 100 locations in our cadre. Lieutenant General Flynn is a distinguished military graduate who commissioned as an infantry officer through Army ROTC at the University of Rhode Island in 1985. As you can see in his bio, he has served in an impressive set of leadership positions at the tactical through strategic level, in peacetime and often in combat. He has commanded at all levels through division, most notably as the commanding general of the 25th Infantry Division, the commanding general of the U.S. Army Combined Arms Center, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and commander of 1st Brigade Combat Team, 82nd Airborne Division. Lieutenant General Flynn currently serves as the Department of the Army G357, overseeing operations, planning, and training across our entire force, a critical role at the strategic level. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker, Lieutenant General Charles Flynn.
To Superintendent P., Colonel Wozniak, Sergeant Major Reed, faculty and staff from the Army ROTC and from across the Institute, thank you for the honor of inviting me to speak. To our distinguished guests, including Major General Rogers, Command Sergeant Major Hogue, and Command Sergeant Major Espinoza, thank you for joining us today. I'd especially like to thank all of those putting themselves in harm's way to serve and protect our communities during this difficult time. What you do is a testament to the same spirit of service that brings us here today. Thank you. And thank you to the parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, and other family members that join us here too. Thank you for helping raise your loved ones, and congratulations on a moment of tremendous pride. You've helped get them on this path to where they stand today. about to take the oath and become commissioned officers in the United States Army. And to you, cadets, congratulations on commissioning as officers in the United States Army. This is a major time both in your lives and for our nation. As many of you have been activated in the past months know well, the call to serve does not always match our timelines. It arises when we're needed, calling us to put our individual wants aside. I'm grateful that so many of you have decided to do so. Now, as I understand it, VMI has commissioned a number of notable officers. Some fought in world wars, some fought in civil ones. Some found later success in government, business, or athletics. And some joined the Navy. But when you really look at the roles, at the most distinguished of your brother rats, you can't help but be inspired by the Army leadership that has come out of this institution. I work with several of them right now. Not only is my executive officer a product of Mother I, class of '96, but his brother rat is our boss, Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy. With those sentiments in mind, I'd like to offer you 3 lessons as you start your life as an officer. Having been on the job for a little over 3 decades, I thought 1 lesson per decade seemed fair. Put these lessons in your hip pocket as ready reminders to do what's right when the times are tough. Lesson 1, 1990. I was a Battalion S4 in the Division Ready Brigade of the 82nd Airborne Division. When Saddam Hussein crossed into Kuwait in early August, days later, I was on a plane, and less than 1 week after the invasion, my brigade was on the ground in Saudi Arabia. This was an exhibition of American global agility like none of us had ever experienced. But none of us would have been there. American resolve would have faltered had we not respected the demands of our individual roles. Thousands of American soldiers and airmen respecting their duties and getting the job done, that is what demonstrated American resolve. That leads me to lesson number 1. Respect the demands of your role. Your commission places you in roles of responsibility. You may complete your initial training and transition immediately to those roles where you are leading troops or advising other leaders. Those roles are crucial to the Army. You become the first-line officer's leadership in a soldier's chain of command. On staff, you may be the subject matter expert for your section. All these roles have certain demands, and those demands should be respected. These demands will include sacrifices. They will include long hours and strain. They will include difficult and unpopular choices. But your job is to respect those demands and put them in front of yourselves. Your soldiers and the nation deserve your respect. You repay that respect by doing your job and doing it to the best of your God-given abilities. Lesson 2. 13 years later, headed back to the same desert, I was in command of 2nd Battalion of the 504th, still in the 82nd Airborne. We just returned from 8 months in Afghanistan and got word that we were headed back to Iraq. For many soldiers and families, this was a possible breaking point. Some of them had enlisted less than a year before, and they were already on their second deployment. Families with young children who didn't understand, and soldiers for whom the gravity of the chosen profession was starting to sink in. In those moments, every order and signal I gave had weight. It affected how well we would train and how many of them would come home. Those months illustrated once again that this job was bigger than me. This is lesson number 2. This job is bigger than you. You may not realize it, but the oath of officers is different than that of enlisted. Officers' oaths finish that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter. While the enlisted oath, that I will obey the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to the regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Again, obey the orders of the officers appointed over me. Enlisted soldiers, they are putting their lives in your hands. Remember that every time you give an order. Remember it every time you render a judgment. Remember it every time you put on your uniform. This job is bigger than you. Lesson 3. In 1997, while serving as a major in the 25th Infantry Division, after having served for more than 8 years in the 82nd and the 75th Ranger Regiment, I was really taken back by the lack of manning and outdated equipment that was available in the unit. The Army had just finished Desert Storm, and the beginnings of a peace dividend were being realized with drawdowns and incentives to get out. We were actually paying soldiers and NCOs and officers to leave, giving them separation pay or short-term retirements. It all seemed very odd to me. Discussions were widespread about how to get out. It felt like we lacked a sense of urgency. I just spent my captain years in the Army in some very demanding units, under some very demanding leaders. And I wanted to be part of the same thing. I wanted to be on a team. I wanted to be on a tough team, one that was filled with tough soldiers. And yet what I found in the 25th Infantry Division were soldiers that had grit. Even though they were undermanned and under-equipped, they had toughness. I learned from what I saw. I felt like the Army needed to cultivate grit in every part of our work so we could build soldiers who were tough, ones that could endure the fight. That is lesson 3. By now in your training, it should be clear that fulfilling the role of an officer is difficult. To execute it faithfully, you should not mollycoddle and you should not pander. This is not a popularity contest. Your job is to build tough soldiers. You should cultivate grit, both in your formations and in yourselves. Grit enables soldiers to do what's necessary in the most demanding of circumstances. It steels resolve and it reveals character. Grit is the key enabler of valor, as your personal commitment each and every day will require it. Heed these reminders and you will serve faithfully. Your family and your friends will feel pride at the person you've become. This institution will strengthen its long legacy of leadership. Respect the demands of your commission. Remember that this is bigger than you and don't coddle. Cultivate and produce soldiers with grit. Now, before I conclude, I'll offer a quote from George S. Patton Jr. speaking to his soldiers before D-Day. Now, I know that General Patton transferred to West Point because VMI was just far too difficult. But let's all agree to put that blemish aside and hear some lessons that he can teach us. Patton was not known for mincing his words. He respected the demands of his role. He understood it was bigger than any of us, and he certainly cultivated grit. His soldiers loved him for it, and together they helped win the war in Europe. Patton said, "The real hero is the soldier who fights, even though he's scared. Some get over their fright in a minute under fire, while others take an hour, and some it takes days. But a real soldier will never let fear overpower his honor or his sense of duty to his country." I'll close with a story of today of the Army that you are joining. In late January, the Army deployed the first of 20,000 soldiers to Europe for Defender 20. It was the Army's largest exercise since the Cold War. This followed the rapid deployment of more than 4,000 soldiers to the Middle East to deter aggression from Iran as we continue to reinforce our operations on the Korean Peninsula. As COVID-19 cases were reported from the Pacific, the Army took swift action by dynamically repositioning itself to protect our force and maintain our critical missions. We made strategic decisions to dramatically scale down the Defender exercise and begin to plan for this new mission to defend our homeland against COVID-19. Today, the Army continues to maintain global security with worldwide presence alongside our allies and partners as we simultaneously engage in the fight to defend our nation. This is the Army that you're joining, an Army George Marshall would be very proud of. It's an Army that moves rapidly to preserve peace and stability at home and across the globe. It's an Army that nurtures to the sick and deters our adversaries. It's an Army where soldiers face their fears and fulfill their duties in times of crisis. It's an Army made up of some of the finest people on earth. And now you have the honor to serve with them and the sacred duty to lead them. Congratulations to you all again, and welcome to the team.
Ladies and gentlemen, our cadets are about to take the oath of commissioning. This oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States is an important tradition of our military, and one that remains relatively unchanged since the early days of our nation. I took this same oath in 1989, now over 30 years ago, and am honored to administer it today to our 117 young men and women standing tall in their homes and with their loved ones across the nation. Cadets, as you take this oath, remember that it connects you with something much larger than yourself and represents the nation putting its faith in your ability to lead its sons and daughters, a sacred responsibility. I know that you will do your best to live up to it. All cadets commissioning as second lieutenants in the United States Army, please stand, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. I state your name. Having been appointed an officer in the Army of the United States in the grade of second lieutenant, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter. So help me God. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in showing appreciation for our military's newest commissioned lieutenants. Wherever you are, give them a congratulations, pat on the back, applause, and snap a few pictures. Congratulations. We will take a few moments now so that each of you can don your rank with someone you have chosen to put on your shoulder boards. While you do so, we will observe virtually. Then begin our roll call of new second lieutenants. Please have your selected individuals put on your rank. Are we muted? At this time, we would like to recognize the Army's newest officers by bringing up each of you on the screen alphabetically. Please stand by for me to call your name and enjoy as we check in with each of your fellow second lieutenants. Second Lieutenant Joshua Akers in Richmond, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Connor Amato in Kingston, New York. Second Lieutenant Trevor Amato in Cheater, Virginia. Second Lieutenant William Anderson in Mebane, North Carolina. Second Lieutenant Tavis Andrews in Smithfield, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Aiden Atchison in Troutman, North Carolina. Second Lieutenant Jacob Bayman, McMinnville, Tennessee. Second Lieutenant Jonathan Baker in Lynchburg, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Rebecca Balzan in Palm Coast, Florida. Second Lieutenant Darren Burrell in Nashville, Tennessee. Second Lieutenant Madeline Barrett in Haymarket, Virginia. Second Lieutenant John Burling in Frederick, Maryland. Second Lieutenant Matthew Blazer in Haymarket, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Maya Boyd in Lynchburg, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Alexander Boyer in Roanoke, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Anna Bozenka in Harveys Lake, Pennsylvania. Second Lieutenant Jared Brayman in Oak Ridge, North Carolina. Second Lieutenant Caleb Brandon in Laurel, Maryland. Second Lieutenant Tasman Briganti in Spotsylvania, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Paul Brown in Fairfax Station, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Jack Buck in Woodlands, Texas. Second Lieutenant Anthony Burgess in Richmond, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Jeremy Chiang in Richmond, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Austin Cooksey in Fairfax Station, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Nicholas Domahoski in Alexandria, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Isaiah Damio in Fresno, California. Second Lieutenant Derek Duclas in Springfield, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Cooper Duplantis in Lake Lure, North Carolina. Second Lieutenant Helen Elliott in Springfield, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Miguel Espinoza in Clarksville, Tennessee. Second Lieutenant Alec Iwansik in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Second Lieutenant William Fuller in Houston, Texas. Second Lieutenant Madeline Fay in Chesapeake, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Nakia Free in Blythewood, South Carolina. Springfield, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Rylan Gagnon in Richmond, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Jacob Gann in Ball Ground, Georgia. Second Lieutenant John Garrig in Alexandria, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Cullen Godbold in Standardsville, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Chase Goldstein in Baltimore, Maryland. Second Lieutenant Joe Gumo in Beech Creek, Pennsylvania. Second Lieutenant Juan Gutierrez in Miami, Florida. Second Lieutenant Mackenzie Haley in Roanoke, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Zachary Hall in Mechanicsville, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Caleb Hamilton in Amelia, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Jennifer Hartman in Roanoke, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Ethan Heatwole in Richmond, Virginia. Second Lieutenant William Hunts in Knoxville, Tennessee. Second Lieutenant Kevin Keaveney in Pompton Plains, New Jersey. Second Lieutenant Connor Kolensky in Lansing, Michigan. Second Lieutenant Anthony King in Yorktown, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Gabriel King in Burleson, Texas. Second Lieutenant Joshua Kitts in Fairfax, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Samuel Knapp in Carmel, Indiana. Second Lieutenant Liam Lacey in Gig Harbor, Washington. Second Lieutenant Andrew Laddie in Lansing, Michigan. Second Lieutenant Louis Lagarde in Winchester, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Zachary Lockhart in Lovettsville, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Romello Levinsky in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Richard Lowisone in Lexington, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Samuel Mancuso in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Second Lieutenant Jasmine Mann in Glen Ellen, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Michael Manning in Branson, Missouri. Second Lieutenant Stephen Marn in Erie, Pennsylvania. Second Lieutenant Benjamin Marsh in Winchester, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Jared Mazurowski in Greene County, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Zachary McClure in Winchester, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Anna McFarland in Herndon, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Taylor McGregor in Danville, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Michael McNamara in Annandale, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Cameron McNeil in Newton, New Jersey. Second Lieutenant Caleb Minus in Orlando, Florida. Second Lieutenant Blake Mushigan in Salem, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Ronald Mulach in Manassas, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Samuel Murphy in Crozet, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Nicholas Nemtsef in Great Falls, Virginia. Trevor Nunez in Vienna, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Daniel O'Connell in Stanton, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Tucker Olshavy in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Did you guys get Olshavy? Second Lieutenant Andrew O'Rourke in Cambrils, Maryland. Second Lieutenant Charles Palandotti in Lexington, North Carolina. Second Lieutenant Laura Payne in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Second Lieutenant Sarah Pesignelli in Raleigh, North Carolina. Second Lieutenant Andrew Pruden in Canton, Georgia. Second Lieutenant James Rainone in Lynchburg, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Hannah Rader in Bedford, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Matthew Rice in Petersburg, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Brianna Richmond at Fort Hood, Texas. Second Lieutenant Corey Rogers in Warrenton, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Jacqueline Rosas in Marietta, Georgia. Second Lieutenant Bryce Sanford, St. Helens, Oregon. Second Lieutenant Jack Scalio in Leesburg, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Ryan Schmitz in St. Michael's, Maryland. Second Lieutenant Anton Schultz in Sparks, Maryland. Second Lieutenant James A. Seiferth in Columbia, Maryland. Second Lieutenant Garrett Schultz in Greenville, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Austin Sloan in Leesburg, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Bradley Smith in Placersville, California. Second Lieutenant Garrett Smith in Bealton, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Ian Smith in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Second Lieutenant Jason Smith in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Julian Smith in St. Michael's, Maryland. Second Lieutenant Austin Stansberry in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Walter Sturrock in Richmond, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Jack Taggart in Charlottesville, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Mallory Townsend in Durham, North Carolina. Second Lieutenant James Tulsky in Springfield, Pennsylvania. Second Lieutenant Cullen Turney in Warrenton, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Valdez Gonzalez, Patricia Valdez Gonzalez in Clinton, North Carolina. Second Lieutenant Talia Villa in Plainview, Texas. Second Lieutenant Nicholas Wainwright in King George, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Cameron Warlittner in Buena Vista, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Luke Welliver in Darlington, Indiana. Second Lieutenant Shionia Wheeler in Hopewell, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Ava Wood in North Chesterfield, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Jacob Wright in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Second Lieutenant Arthur Yee in Andover, Massachusetts. And Second Lieutenant David Zingaro in Mechanicsville, Virginia.
He wasn't called.
Okay,
Richards.
Second Lieutenant Neil Richards. All right, I think we got everybody out there across the nation, as we've seen. Today, we commissioned 117 second lieutenants into the United States Army, into 16 different branches, and who will serve in all three components of our Army. Congratulations go out from myself, our cadre, faculty and staff of VMI and Mary Baldwin University, and many others. VMI Army ROTC will once again have the largest commissioning program in the nation, and that is a testimony first and foremost to our cadets and new lieutenants here today. Thanks for your commitment to serve. Please stay in touch as you get ready to proceed on orders. In particular, send back your commissioning photos from today. We'll be sending out your commissioning certificates signed by Secretary McCarthy, who we heard from today. We wish you all safe travels and good health. Many of you only have a couple of weeks before you report to your Bullock training. Keep doing PT and get ready to roll. Please stand by for the benediction. Please stand for the benediction and remain standing for the Army song.
Congratulations to our second lieutenants. Please join me in the benediction. Lord, may your anointing be upon these new Army officers, and may they accomplish immeasurably more in their lives than they can dream or imagine today. May they make a deep and lasting impact on those they lead. May they be the vessels through which you work to restore hope and dignity and unity to our land. I ask this in your holy name. Amen.
March along, sing a song with the army of the free. Count the brave, count the true, who have fought to victory. We're the army and proud of our name. We're the army and proudly proclaim. First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might. And the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won. And the army goes rolling along. Then it's high, high, hey, the army's on its way. Proud of Mankato is out and strong. For wherever we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along.
Once again, congratulations to all of our new commissionees. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the VMI Army ROTC commissioning ceremony. Thanks for participating from across the country. Best of luck and Godspeed to our new Army officers. Have a great day and stay safe as you celebrate today's event.